Question that we're going to be answering today is, should you go all out or should you Gucci-fy your very first AR-15 rifle like I did? Let's start by talking about what the inspiration for this build was, as well as my intent. So the inspiration for this build is quite obviously, as many people can tell, based on the Block 2 program. So it is a 14.5 quad rail with a B5 stop mod and a Surefire muzzle device, as well as the RC2 suppressor with an EOTech combo, which is very similar to what the Block 2 program offered on those M4s. But I decided to base it off the stop mod Block 2 program. This is merely just an inspiration. I do not claim that this is a Block 2 clone, although it does kind of look like one at face value in merely aesthetics. So this is my very first AR build, purpose built for night vision. Now I don't have a LAM on it now because I don't have a nods setup, but when I do, I will get one. But I am one of those people, I don't want to train with a big heavy object on it while it's not necessary. Up top, we have the Surefire RC2. The reason I went with this guy, again, as my very first suppressor, is because of its tried and true reliability. I really like how many rounds these things can handle. I've seen 80, 90, 100, 120,000 rounds on these cans and still going strong. So that's the reason I went with the can. It is just simply tried and true. It's the same reason that I shoot Glocks. And it's something that I can trust my life with, and I don't have to worry about it. Underneath it, I do have the 4-prong, not the 3-prong. The only reason that I really went with the 4-prong is because it is less pingy. So I know you can hear a lot of the times with a 3-prong and even the 4-prong that it pings pretty good, but I will say the 4-prong is significantly quieter than the 3-prong, albeit still noticeable. If you can't see it good enough, well, let me show you. I'll get into the flashlight here in a second, but the upper receiver that I have on this guy is a complete upper receiver group from BCM. So this is the Mark II upper receiver, which basically the only noticeable part on that from an aesthetic standpoint is that the forward assist is a little bit closer. So this is the Mark II upper receiver with a BCM quad rail, 14.5-inch chrome lined barrel, and a mid-length gas system. Now, that is where it deviates from the Block 2 because the Block 2 is a carbine length gas system, which I think the mid-length is beautiful. So I will show some clips on this. This gun is beautifully gassed, but it's for some other reasons that I will get into later. That is the complete upper. That is probably the cheapest part that I went with this, but it is tried and true. BCM is very reliable, and I think for the price, you're not gonna get much better quality anywhere else. If you do, it's going to be marginal. And I just like that BCM is a tried and true company. So up here we have the Surefire 640 dual fuel turbo. Now I have it capped off with a light cap that is invented by yours truly. This is a carbon fiber nylon composite, 3D printed, and I make it myself. I've considered selling them, but it'd be like $15 for one and maybe $30 for 3 shipped to your door, maybe $35. If you want one, I'll sell them. If not, it's just kind of a hobby of mine. I also have the pressure pad. I do not have a constant on button or a constant on switch for this guy. Because I have the light cap, I don't really find a reason for constant on. I think it's better to just be able to press it. But the reason I have that light cap is reflection, but also for white light ND, which honestly is more likely to happen than somebody seeing a reflection, in my personal opinion. Now, up top here, I have the EOTech EXPS 3-1, as well as the, or maybe it's the 0. I don't know, it's the regular donut one. Behind it, I have the M33 magnifier. Now this is a Coyote anodized as opposed to the FDE Cerakote that is on the G33s, or at least the modern G33s. This comes with a nomenclature plate, and I got it off of T-Rex Arms. This is the military designation one. I got this off of T-Rex Arms on a limited run, and I was able to get that before it sold out. Back on the upper, I have this guy right here, the BCM foregrip. I'm kind of regretting how short that I cut it, but I still like it. I have not found anything that I like better, except for ironically, I ran a CAC broom handle on here briefly, and I actually really liked it. It's pretty ugly, but function and form and how it feels in the hand, it actually feels pretty good. Being able to get like a nice wide, grip on that, which is another reason that I have these ergo grips covering it. I like a nice fat, thick grip on my rifle, because I actually came from training with this guy, and this takes a nice wide grip. I like that it's nice and thick. It also protects my coating if I want to be a little pussy about getting scratches and shit on it. So that's why I got those ergo grips there, as well as the BCM foregrip. Keeping in track with the upper, I have the Geisley supercharging handle. This is the airborne charging handle, but with bigger, I call them Batman wings. So these are pretty wide, these are pretty big. And I actually prefer this over the Radian. I'm not a huge fan of Radian as a company. Not for any particular reason, just simply because
it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
I tend not to like their products, and I'll get into more of that later. But I went with the Geisley just because it's got these nice big Batman wings. I like being able to have that, especially because of the EOTech mount that is in the way of it. I still have a good amount of room to grab from. Inside here, I have the KAK, K-A-K, K-Spec bolt carrier group. This is the sand cutter option with the downward vent. It does make your mags a little bit dirty and your rounds a little bit dirty, but to me that's not much of a big deal because this gun, like I said, is gassed beautifully. That's pretty much it for the upper. Let's move into the lower receiver. The lower receiver is a LMT Mars L. This is the full ambi version. I have the Magpul trigger guard right there, just for a little bit more room than the flat ones. I don't know, I don't really like having to deal with the right side bolt catch release, even though I do find myself using it more often than I should, especially considering the money I spent for this. So I like the LMT because, again, I wanted a company that I could absolutely rely on. I did used to have a Radian Talon safety on here, but I was not a big fan of them.
And I've got to say, in all honesty, it's the biggest piece of dog shit.
It did not work with my Geisley trigger, so I moved back to this stock LMT one, and it is very, very clicky. I prefer the 90 degree, that's just me. And to the point where I even have a $15 very, very mil-spec safety on this guy. Now, getting into the trigger, I have the best trigger on the AR-15 pattern market. This is the Geisley SSAE X with lightning bow trigger. So we'll test that out here. It's got about a 2 pound, maybe even less take up, and that break is very light. It's very light. You have to be very cautious with this because you will break right through it if you're not paying attention. It is extremely light, and I prefer having 2-stage because I like to shoot at long range. Now, down here, I did originally start this build with the Magpul grip, but I was not a fan. I don't like how bulky it is back here, so I wanted something a little bit slimmer. In fact, I actually ran an A2 grip on this for a little while. I settled on the BCM because I like the ergonomics. It fits my hand very well and also allows for storage. Moving back to the buttstock, I have the B5 SOPMOD Enhanced stock. I prefer it because I can store my batteries. Another reason I went with this stock is because a lot of people don't know this, and even the people that do know it don't really use it, is that in the back here, you can store a tool. This is a multi-tool. This is a flathead screwdriver as well as a buffer nut wrench situation, as well as a 1/2-inch wrench for your LPVO needs. And yeah, this tool comes in handy more often than you'd think. I will admit though, 90% of the time when I use that, it's to dig foam earplugs out of my grip. So there is that, if I'm being honest. Inside of the buffer tube back here, I have a Sprinko blue spring as well as an H2 buffer. This paired with everything else, paired with a mid-length gas system and the KAK downward vent sand cutter, as well as this Geisley charging handle that just blocks that teeny tiny little bit of extra gas that might be coming out, allows for this gun to be beautifully gassed. This thing shoots flawlessly. I get virtually 0 recoil impulse, and it is just phenomenal. That has actually been the cheapest upgrade that I've done to this rifle. That is the most worthwhile. If you have a 14.5 mid-length gas system, somewhere around that ballpark, 13.7, 14.5, 16, I would do the Sprinko blue spring as well as the H2 buffer weight. That just makes this whole system so flawless. I shoot it suppressed, I get bolt lock. I shoot it unsuppressed, I get bolt lock. I have flawless feeding. I have never once had a single jam with this rifle, and I'm about 3,000 to 4,000 rounds in. The very last thing that I have on this guy, which is not currently on it, but I'll put it on it, a T-Rex arm sling. So this is M81. Most of the time I'm wearing M81. I do really like the T-Rex arm sling. I have grown to love it. I have it on most of my rifles. There are a few slings in the market that are very similar to this, and I will transition it from place to place, but usually when I'm shooting, this is the configuration it will be in, the two closest, forward and back of the lower receiver. And if I'm carrying it, I'll move it all the way up to the front here, and then I'll move this to the opposite side to keep that nice and snug to my body. So this keeps it nice and tight.
What do you mean by that?
I don't really have to worry about it. So why did I do this, and why should you do this? If you have never built an AR before, I highly recommend you take your time building it like I did. This was not built in a day, just like Rome. And I highly recommend you take your time and build it out slowly and build the rifle that you want. A lot of this stuff is used, like my EOTech was secondhand. This light I was able to get for $220 out the door. My suppressor I was able to get on sale. The vast majority of these little plastic parts I got on sale. I think I got my stock for like 65 bucks. My trigger I got on sale on a blem sale for like $165. So a lot of this stuff I just waited around. I waited for those sales to come, and then I got all the parts that I wanted so that I would never have to upgrade it ever again. And that's what I've done. I have never upgraded this once it was finished. I mean, I did experiment a couple of times with some different stuff, but for the most part, this is the way this rifle is going to stay for a long time. But I'll stop rambling and I'll put a total price down here on the screen. That's not good. Oof. So that was rough. Anyway, my rifle costed about this much money, but we're going to leave an F in the chat for those two wonderful rifles right there that so graciously gave their lives in the service of this video. Spend your money wisely, of course, but I don't believe in the whole buying a cheap rifle and then slowly building it out, because in the end, you're going to end up spending more money. Now, if you don't have the money, don't spend the money. You know, if you can only afford like an Anderson or a Palmetto, obviously get that. But if you're talking about your first full-on like build, I do think that it's wise to, if you can afford it, if you can wait, to take your time and build the rifle that you want. The question that we were all asking at the beginning of the video is, should you Gucci your very first AR build? And I believe the answer is yes. I believe you should buy what you want, but take your time and do it as slowly as you need to, especially if you already have another rifle. Now, take your time and build the rifle that you want before you have to go out and replace everything. I know a couple of friends, I'm thinking about you, yeah, you know who you are, have built out a rifle and then they built it again and now they're building it a third time. You know who you are. I see you laughing behind the screen on the toilet watching this video. You better like the video, by the way. And yeah, it's more money and more money and more money, and then you end up 3 build prices into 1 build before you know it. So that's the reason I just decided to go, not necessarily all out, but all out, all things considered, for my very first rifle build, and I hope you like it. So leave a comment down below what your rifle build looks like, and if you liked the video, please hit the like button as well as share it with your friends. That is going to be all for today. I hope you liked the video. Peace out for now.
It's the biggest piece of dog shit.